The sun was just beginning to rise over Greenfield, casting a warm, golden glow on the bustling streets. Vendors shouted out their wares, and the scent of fresh banh mi and pho filled the air. The neighborhood was alive with its usual energy, but amidst the lively scene, Maria Nguyen sat at her kitchen table, a letter clutched in her hands. Maria's eyes widened with excitement as she read the announcement from the local council. The letter detailed an initiative to plant trees throughout the neighborhood to rejuvenate the environment and foster community spirit. Her mind raced with possibilities. This was the perfect opportunity to bring some much-needed greenery back to Greenfield. She knew, however, that convincing the community, especially the older residents, would be a challenge. But Maria was determined. She set the letter down and began drafting a plan to present at the upcoming community meeting. The community center buzzed with murmurs and skeptical glances as residents filed in. Maria stood at the front, her heart pounding in her chest. A projector displayed images of lush greenery and vibrant parks, a stark contrast to the current state of their neighborhood. "Good evening, everyone," Maria began, her voice steady despite her nerves. "Thank you for coming. I know you're all busy, but I promise this will be worth your time." She clicked through slides, showing the potential transformation of Greenfield. As she spoke passionately about the benefits of the tree planting initiative, she noticed Tom Love sitting in the back, arms crossed and frowning. Lily Tran, a young girl with wide eyes and a love for nature, tugged at her mother's sleeve, whispering excitedly. Mr. Nguyen, the wise elder, watched with a neutral but attentive expression. "We can create something beautiful together," Maria concluded, looking around the room. "But we need everyone's support." The room erupted in mixed reactions. Some residents nodded in agreement, inspired by Maria's vision, while others, like Tom, remained skeptical. Outside the community center, groups of residents continued the discussion. The air was tense with differing opinions. Tom L., a retired engineer, openly voiced his doubts. "This sounds nice in theory," Tom said, his voice carrying over the crowd, "but who's going to maintain these trees? And where's the funding coming from?" Maria stepped forward, addressing Tom directly. "I understand your concerns, Mr. Tom. We've thought about the funding and maintenance. We plan to seek donations and grants, and volunteers can help care for the trees." Tom shook his head. "I've seen projects like this fail before. It's more trouble than it's worth." The crowd was divided. Some residents nodded in agreement with Tom, while others were moved by Maria's optimism. The tension in the air was palpable. Determined not to give up, Maria decided to visit Tom at his home. She found him in his cozy but cluttered garage, filled with old tools and photos. "Mr. Tom," Maria said gently, "I know you have your doubts, but your expertise could make a huge difference. We need someone who understands the technical aspects." Tom's facade cracked slightly. He sighed, looking around his garage. "My late wife loved gardening," he admitted. "She tried to start a project like this once, but it didn't take off." Maria saw the pain in his eyes and realized his resistance was more personal than practical. "I'm sorry for your loss, Mr. Tom. We can make this project succeed, in her memory. Your knowledge and skills are invaluable." Tom remained non-committal, but Maria sensed a shift. She left, hopeful that he might come around. Meanwhile, Maria visited Mr. Nguyen's home. His house was filled with artifacts and photographs from Greenfield's past. Mr. Nguyen began sharing stories and photos of the neighborhood's former glory days. "These gardens," Mr. Nguyen said, pointing to an old photograph, "were once the heart of Greenfield. My ancestors planted these trees. It was a place of community and beauty." Lily, who had accompanied Maria, was captivated. "Wow, Mr. Nguyen. Can we make it look like that again?" Mr. Nguyen smiled, his eyes twinkling with pride. "Yes, Lily. With determination and hard work, we can." These stories instilled a sense of pride and nostalgia in the listeners, particularly in Lily, who became even more determined to see the project succeed. Back at the community center, a smaller but determined group gathered for a follow-up meeting. Maria outlined the initial steps, assigning tasks and rallying support. Lily eagerly volunteered to lead a group of children, inspired by Mr. Nguyen's stories. As they were discussing the plans, Tom arrived late but quietly took a seat at the back. Maria noticed him and gave a small, encouraging nod. The group's dedication was clear, but so were the doubts and the enormity of the task ahead. Yet, the seeds of determination and unity had been planted, and the community took its first step toward transforming Greenfield into a greener, more vibrant place. The community center's main hall was a hive of activity. Tables were covered with plans, seedlings, and tools. Maria moved from group to group, assigning specific tasks and making sure everyone knew their roles. "All right, everyone," Maria called out, her voice carrying over the buzz of conversation. "Today, we'll be sorting through the seeds and tools. Lily, you'll be leading the children's group. Make sure everyone knows what they're doing." Lily nodded enthusiastically, her eyes bright with excitement. "Got it, Ms. Maria," she said, turning to the group of children who looked up to her with admiration. Meanwhile, the adults were discussing logistics and funding. Tom stood on the sidelines, watching the organized chaos. Despite his initial resistance, he found himself drawn to the project. He couldn't help but offer a few practical suggestions, drawing on his engineering background. "You know," Tom said, stepping forward, "if we arrange the planting sites in a grid pattern, we can maximize space and ensure even growth." Maria smiled, recognizing the significance of his involvement. "That's a great idea, Tom. Can you help us sketch it out?" Tom nodded, taking a seat and beginning to draw plans. His quiet involvement signaled a shift in his attitude, and Maria felt a glimmer of hope. Despite the enthusiasm, logistical challenges soon emerged. They realized they didn't have enough tools, and their budget was tighter than expected. Coordinating everyone's schedules also proved difficult, but Maria remained optimistic. It was a rainy afternoon when Maria and Lily visited the local hardware store. They were trying to negotiate discounts on supplies, but the store owner, Mr. Tran, seemed reluctant. "I don't know, Maria," Mr. Tran said, frowning. "Business has been slow, and I can't afford to give away too much." Lily, however, had an idea. She stepped forward, her eyes wide and earnest. "Mr. Tran, this project is really important. It's for our whole community. Imagine how beautiful Greenfield will be with all those trees." Mr. Tran softened at Lily's enthusiasm. All right, he said with a sigh. "I can give you a discount, and I'll throw in some extra tools for free. Just make sure those trees thrive." Maria and Lily left the store with a mix of donated and discounted items. Maria praised Lily for her persuasive skills, boosting her confidence. Despite the rain, their spirits were lifted by this small victory. Back in Greenfield, Tom was in his cluttered garage, tinkering with some old gardening tools. Maria and Mr. Nguyen paid him a visit, hoping to enlist his help in designing an efficient planting layout. "Tom," Maria began, "we really need your expertise. Can you help us design the layout for the planting?" Tom hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "All right. Let's take a look at what you've got." As they worked together, Tom began sharing stories about his late wife's love for gardening. His usually gruff exterior softened as he spoke of her, revealing a deeper, more vulnerable side. "She always wanted a garden like the ones in those old photos," Tom said, his voice thick with emotion. "I guess, this project reminds me of her." This moment of vulnerability strengthened his bond with Maria and Mr. Nguyen. Tom's involvement deepened, and for the first time, he felt a sense of purpose. One evening, a severe storm hit Greenfield. The next morning, the empty lot was a muddy mess. Debris and damaged supplies were scattered everywhere. The community gathered to assess the damage. Maria's initial optimism faltered as she saw the extent of the destruction. "This is worse than I thought," she murmured, her heart sinking. Tom stepped up, rallying the group with practical advice on how to salvage materials and rebuild. "We can't let this stop us," he said firmly. Let's start by clearing the debris and saving what we can." His leadership inspired others to take action. The storm served as a literal and metaphorical setback, testing the community's resolve and Maria's leadership. The community center was transformed into a temporary workshop where residents repaired damaged tools and replanned the project. Neighbors who were previously uninvolved joined in, moved by the collective effort. Mr. Nguyen shared more historical anecdotes, boosting morale. "This land has faced worse," he said, his voice steady. "And we've always come back stronger." Maria's resilience shone through as she coordinated the recovery efforts. Tom's transformation continued as he worked side by side with other residents, including children. The hard work and shared struggles brought the community closer, but the looming question of whether they could complete the project remained. On a sunny afternoon, the empty lot was cleared and ready for planting again. The community gathered for a symbolic pre-planting ceremony. Mr. Nguyen planted the first sapling, sharing a heartfelt speech about the land's history and its future. "This land has a rich history," Mr. Nguyen said, his voice filled with emotion. "We are not just planting trees. We are planting hope for future generations." Tom placed a small plaque in memory of his wife next to the sapling. This ceremony marked a significant emotional milestone for the characters, particularly Tom and Maria. The act of planting the first tree symbolized their collective hope and renewed determination. The ceremony was uplifting, but the hard work of planting the rest of the trees still lay ahead. The community's unity was stronger, but the physical and logistical challenges remained. As they looked at the newly planted sapling, they knew they were on the right path. Together, they would transform Greenfield into a green oasis. The sun rose brightly over Greenfield, casting a golden hue on the newly cleared lot. Excitement filled the air as residents gathered, ready to begin the planting. Tables were set up with refreshments, and the tools and seedlings were neatly arranged. Maria stood at the front, her heart swelling with pride and anticipation. "Good morning, everyone," she called out. The crowd hushed, turning their attention to her. "Today is the day we've all been working towards. This is more than just planting trees, it's about building a future for our community." The crowd cheered, their spirits high. Tom was seen actively organizing groups, his transformation from skeptic to leader complete. Lily, with her boundless energy, led a group of children, her confidence and enthusiasm shining through. Despite the excitement, there was an underlying tension about whether they could complete the planting in one day and how the trees would fare in the long term. Maria pushed these thoughts aside, focusing on the positive energy of the moment. As the day progressed, various parts of the lot came alive with activity. Different groups were planting different types of trees and shrubs, the atmosphere filled with laughter, chatter, and the sounds of shovels hitting the earth. Tom's group, consisting mainly of older residents, worked methodically. He shared his knowledge and experience, guiding them through the planting process. "Make sure the roots are spread out evenly," Tom instructed, showing them how to position the saplings. Maria's team was busy discussing the importance of environmental care while planting. She walked among them, encouraging and assisting where needed. "These trees will provide shade, clean air, and beauty for generations to come," she explained, her passion evident. Lily's band of children was planting smaller shrubs and flowers. She handled small crises with remarkable maturity, keeping the younger kids motivated. "We're doing great, everyone," Lily cheered. "These plants will make our neighborhood beautiful." As the day wore on, fatigue began to set in. Some residents started to worry about finishing on time. Maria, sensing the dip in energy, called for a short break, reminding everyone to stay hydrated and take care of themselves. Near the center of the lot, Mr. Nguyen and some children were digging a particularly deep hole for a large tree. As they dug, the shovel hit something solid. Curious, they cleared away the soil, revealing an old, weathered plaque buried beneath the earth. Mr. Nguyen knelt down, brushing off the dirt. His eyes widened in recognition. "This plaque," he murmured, "was dedicated by my ancestors. They were the first to plant trees here in Greenfield." The children gathered around, fascinated. Mr. Nguyen shared an emotional story about his family's legacy, explaining how his ancestors had envisioned a green, thriving community. The discovery deepened the community's connection to their history. The plaque served as a reminder of the long-term commitment needed to maintain their efforts. The pressure to honor the past added weight to their current work. As the sun began to set, some groups faced challenges with rocky soil and stubborn roots, slowing their progress. The initial excitement had worn off, replaced by fatigue and frustration. Tom used his engineering skills to devise solutions, teaching others how to tackle the tough spots. Use the spade to break up the rocks first, he advised, demonstrating the technique. Then, you can dig around the roots. Maria coordinated additional help where needed, keeping the momentum going. She moved between groups, offering words of encouragement and practical assistance. "We're almost there," she said, her voice filled with determination. "We can do this together." The collaborative problem-solving strengthened the bonds between residents. Tom's leadership and Maria's organizational skills were crucial in overcoming the physical obstacles. Twilight cast shades of orange and purple across the sky as the lot neared its transformation. Only a few trees still needed planting. The community members, driven by renewed energy, rallied for one last effort. Even those who had left earlier returned to help finish the job. The sense of unity and determination was palpable. Together, they worked tirelessly, planting the remaining trees as the sky darkened. Lily led the children in planting the final, hope tree, a large sapling at the center of the lot. Each child hung a note with their wishes for the future on its branches. "This tree is for our dreams," Lily declared, her voice filled with hope. Maria and Tom planted a tree together, cementing their partnership and mutual respect. "Thank you, Tom," Maria said softly. "We couldn't have done this without you." Tom nodded, his eyes reflecting the gratitude and camaraderie of the moment. "It's been my pleasure, Maria." The newly planted lot was now illuminated by strings of lights and lanterns. A bonfire crackled in the center, around which the community gathered. The atmosphere was filled with joy and a sense of accomplishment. The community celebrated their achievement with food, music, and shared stories. Maria stood up to speak, her heart full. "Today, we've done something incredible. We've planted more than trees, we've planted hope and a future for Greenfield." Tom, Mr. Nguyen, and Lily each took turns speaking, reflecting on the journey and their personal growth. Tom spoke of his late wife and how this project had helped him heal. Mr. Nguyen shared more stories of the past, enriching the community's understanding of their heritage. Lily's speech was filled with youthful optimism, looking forward to a greener future. The story closed on a hopeful yet realistic note, acknowledging the ongoing commitment required to nurture the newly planted trees. The community's resolve to maintain their green oasis was clear. As the final scene panned out, it showed the transformed neighborhood, with newly planted trees standing as a testament to the community's effort and unity. The camera lingered on the hope tree, adorned with notes from the children, symbolizing the bright future ahead.